You're listening to the Orchestra Teacher Podcast. Welcome to the Orchestra Teacher Podcast, ladies and gentlemen. It's an exciting time for most of us out there. We're wrapping up the school year, and for me, I have a day left, and we're done before Memorial Day weekend here. So it's a really exciting time. I got my qualified captain T-shirt on. I'm ready to hit the lake, hit the boat here, and have some fun this summer. But it is not without being able to have one more amazing guest on the podcast. I have today for you Dr. David Miller from the University of Kentucky. And here he is. David, thank you so much for joining us today on the Orchestra Teacher Podcast.
Yeah, happy to be here. Had a real good time chatting at conference a couple months ago, and looking forward to spending some more time with you.
That's right. We knew each other just a little bit through webinars and online meetings and things through the Astor board. But when we actually got to sit down and sat next to each other a little bit at some of the board meetings, and it was really nice to get to know you and learn more about you. And I was like, well, we got to have you on the podcast. So finally, after a few months, we were able to work out the schedule. So I'm glad. Thank you so much for being here. Let's see. Tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe where you're from and your background in string teaching, because you are now at the University of Kentucky, you just wrapped up your first year. Is that right? Okay.
Yeah, that's correct.
So a lot of new territory. I can't wait to hear all about it. But kind of tell us about your background first.
Sure. So I grew up in North Carolina in Greensboro, originally
Okay.
from Boston, or just outside of Boston. Moved down to North Carolina in third grade and grew up a horn player.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, and so I always enjoyed like playing in orchestra, like youth orchestra, all-state orchestra. Those were like some of the really most meaningful musical experiences of my time. Band was fun too. Like, don't get me wrong, I enjoyed my time in band.
And you marched and you've done all that?
Yeah, I did
Mellophone?
mellophone in the marching band. I teched marching band all throughout college, but when I took string tech, actually, it was the first time I had touched a violin, and then a year or so later, I inherited my great-grandfather's violin.
Nice.
So my great-grandfather, early 1900s, played with the Boston Symphony.
Wow.
So I was really fortunate to get this quite a lovely violin.
That's got to be, yeah. Fantastic.
And I remember talking to Rebecca McLeod about it at the time, who was my undergrad teacher. And she's like, you can't have a violin this nice and not take lessons. So I started taking violin lessons in college.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, that sort of like completely shifted my career path, inheriting this violin. And
well, when you have someone like Rebecca as your sensei, it's like that just does it too, right? I mean, because there's not much better, and she's just amazing and motivating and inspiring. So
yeah, I remember like, oh my gosh, I was so upset I had to take string methods.
You were upset?
I was like, why do I have to do this? I'm just gonna go be a band teacher. And then I was like, no, you got to take string tech. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
When there's like, maybe there's something I can learn about teaching during this class that'll help me be a better band teacher.
I had no idea about all this. This is really cool.
Yeah, the attitude lasted about 5 minutes. And then like 5 minutes into the first class with Rebecca McLeod, I was just like, wow, this is just a completely life-changing experience. And I was like, I think I'm going to really enjoy this class.
Fantastic.
And started taking lessons, and then it was time to talk about student teaching. And I was like, I really want to have a good orchestra experience for student teaching. And
you did it.
And I did it. I student taught with a teacher who's like split does band and orchestra at the high school, who's also a horn player. So we had lots of nerdy joke time together. Well, yeah, it took just a couple days into student teaching, and it's like fully commit. I was like, all right, I'm gonna do this. I'm on the orchestra train. And
amazing.
When I finished student teaching. I took a job outside of Charlotte, North Carolina. North Carolina, started an orchestra program there.
Oh, from
Uh,
scratch.
yeah, so it was the only orchestra program in the county at the time.
Wow.
Had like eight students in the middle school and like 15, 17, somewhere in that range in the high school. By the end of the first year, we had over 70 sign up for the middle school and over 60 sign up for the high school. So they
Fantastic.
had to hire a second teacher, went full time to the high school from there. By the time I left, we had over 100 students enrolled in the orchestra program, and one of the most pivotal experiences for me was like constantly spending time with the violin.
Yeah.
Like continuing to take lessons, continuing to learn cello, learn bass at a decent level, so I could play with my students, model for my students. And there was just, to me, it was something like profoundly intimate about spending time with an instrument that was just like so tactile.
Yes. Yeah, because horn is there's a lot to it, but it's all inside and it's so like it's such a small amount of muscles that require a crazy amount of control. Otherwise, you're just popping off the wrong notes like crazy. So, but it's a lot different.
Yeah, a lot different. One of the things I love most about it is like trying to figure something out. It's like, oh, it's not working. I can just like video record myself and watch myself playing a string instrument and be like, really identify exactly why it wasn't working. Here's the specific moment where I did something that, 3 or 4 notes from now is causing the mistake. That, with horn playing, it's just
does it seem like it's more of a does it seem like it's more of a guessing game or like a trial and error?
I'd say it's a lot more of experimentation.
Okay.
Because, I have to like, when I'm practicing horn, I have to play something. It's like, okay, that doesn't sound right. Why is it not doing what I want it to do? And I have to think like, maybe it's an issue with my airflow. Maybe it's an issue with my embouchure. Maybe it's an issue with like any number of variables that I can only reflect back on and think, okay, well, what was happening? But I got really good at journaling and reflecting about my practice through my horn studies, and taking that over to learning violin in combination with the additional tool of video recording and being able to see everything was just really beneficial for me.
Yeah.
So I got to do that. That was great. I actually took lessons with Heather Loftel, who's now at Ohio State.
Okay, great.
Your alma mater, if I remember correctly.
That's correct. She's doing awesome there. I'm so glad for her.
I know she's only a few hours away from me.
Okay, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's right. I'm really fortunate she came down to the UK before the ASTA conference, and we palled around for a couple days, and she taught some classes at UK and talked to the local orchestra teachers. So
yeah,
that's been super great. Then I went back to grad school, so taught orchestra outside of Charlotte.
So you were there how many years?
5 years.
5 years, yeah.
Years.
Yep.
And then TA'd for Rebecca McLeod for my graduate school. And then did my PhD at University of Maryland.
Okay.
And that's when I got like really into big data, quantitative research analysis, and looking into a lot of the questions that I noticed like from a teacher, like, wow, I have a lot of colleagues that, every day it's like, oh, it's a new Facebook post of, hey, everyone, I'm leaving the teaching profession. I got this job that will allow me to spend more time with my family, or will allow me to have weekends at home or evenings at home.
Yeah.
Or sometimes it's as much as like, I have a job that I'll get treated respectfully while I'm there.
Yeah. Or make twice as much money, or
there's
all those things. Yeah.
That's definitely a thing. I'm a little surprised at how infrequently money came up.
Good.
Like
that's good.
The primary reason.
Yeah.
I think it's always like an additional motivating factor. The higher salaries outside of teaching.
But they don't. What people forget a lot is we get a lot of time off. And you really can't put a price on that. Like, I am so ready for the summer. I mean, I've worked my tail off, spring concert and the awards banquet and these final exams and everything. And then now I have that time and I can do whatever I want. If I want to work more, I can. If I want to teach, I can. If I want to do nothing, I can. And
Yeah.
those choices are, I mean, there's a lot of people who are envious of that too. And
Yeah.
and it's not to say that we don't have to do anything, but we can do what we want during those times. And there's times when I've worked, when I was younger, before kids, I worked part-time jobs, and I worked at the Apple Store in 2007, the summer of 2007, when the first iPhone came out, and I got to play with an iPhone the day before most of the world, the very first one. I mean, like, that's an experience. It was great,
Yeah.
So, but we have to be thankful that, and I have a lot of my family works in retail, and so when it comes to Thanksgiving, that week of Thanksgiving, I'm off, and they're like into it, in the thick of it, big time. So
Yeah.
those are the benefits that I look at too. Is that while pay, especially when you're younger and the profession isn't as good, that time you can't put a price on that.
Yeah, maybe it was at an ASTA session this past year, uh, but it's such a common theme that, like, as you change stages of a career, like, that summer break means different things to you.
Oh, for sure.
I know, like, so many early career teachers, it's like, "Oh, summer break. All right, well, that's when I'm gonna make all my fun money.
Right.
I'll go, like, wait tables at Olive Garden, and, everything I make during the summer is just, like,
Whatever I want
extra
to use it
money
for.
that I get
Yeah.
to go to the vacation
I
for."
think that summer at Apple, I spent more money on stuff than I did actually making it, because I bought a laptop, and I bought, at the time, I bought the phone, and so those are the type of things that, yeah. But
Yeah.
but I've also spent summers when I was, doing my candidacy exams, like writing for 4 weeks, like heavy
Mhm.
duty,
Yes.
so yeah.
That was me 2 summers ago, where
Right.
writing the bulk of my dissertation in between my 2nd and 3rd year.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's definitely the same thing.
Yeah.
And then the flip side of that is, as one progresses through different stages of the career, their time within the school year and how they spend that time can inform a lot of different
For
changes.
sure.
So, like, I mean, I do not envy high school marching band directors at all,
Oh,
especially in the fall. Anytime, but especially in the fall.
that's right.
And they put in so much work during that time. And I've noticed, like, I have a lot of close friends who were high school marching band directors at some point in their career. And then as they progressed to a different stage, like personally or professionally,
Hmm.
they really wanted to spend their time during the school year doing other things. And that
Yeah.
maybe they went to teach middle school band and, still assist with the high school band, but don't have as many responsibilities in
Right.
terms of, like, booking all the buses and all the admin tasks that,
Yeah.
like,
It's a
just
lot.
administering a marching, it's so much.
Yeah. And then the summer too. I mean, they get cut short with the band camp and having to, do that like 2 weeks before school starts or whenever it is. But it's like a whole big chunk of time, not only executing it, but planning for it. And so, like, they start planning band camp like as soon as school's out or even before school's out. It's like, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's something that, like, right now I'm in my first summer as an assistant professor, and it's just like, wow,
You've been out
that's
for 3 weeks,
I know, I've
and the
been
people
out
in the
for 3
public schools are
weeks.
still going for either this week or a couple more weeks after this, even.
Yeah, I've
Yeah,
been out for 3 weeks.
it was always weird. It's like, I'm
And
done. It's like it's May 1st, and I'm done.
yeah, so, took a little bit of time off, to focus on buying our house and
Oh,
moving.
yeah.
We just bought a house in Lexington,
Aha.
so that's super exciting, and just getting back to it, it's like, these research projects, these questions that I've had on the back of my mind that, like, during the school year, it's so easy to get interrupted. And when I'm working with data sets that have, like, thousands and tens of thousands of observations, like, wading through these analyses, it's like just having, like, 4 days of no interruptions. Not that I spend 4 straight days working at once, but
you could if you
I
wanted
could.
to.
But there's no other like academic or work-related task that's coming up that I have to attend to in that moment. So I get to stay in the same headspace for the writing. And right now that's been really valuable, especially like after I spent that first year at UK, just syllabus writing, course prep, all new preps.
Right. And now next year you'll have most of those classes again, or maybe a couple new ones, here and there.
Yeah. So I'm teaching string tech, which I've taught before at the University of Maryland. I'm teaching instrumental music education, like the introductory course, which I taught last year at UK. And I'm teaching Research 1, which I taught last year at UK. So the fall is no new preps.
That's
still
fantastic.
I get to do some revisions to the course, being like, okay, well, didn't accomplish exactly what I wanted to, but it's not building a course from scratch. It's like, it's just nice because I get to do it again.
That's right.
And just continuously improve it, make it better. So yeah, it's been a really interesting experience so far. It's like, 3 weeks into my first summer break.
Yeah. And then you guys start up like mid-August or mid-late August?
Mid-August. Yeah, I think.
Yeah. You're not looking that far ahead, and that's okay.
Yeah, I know. This summer we're doing a lot of traveling, mostly to Richmond. Family weddings to attend, friend weddings to attend. Friend graduations, family graduations to attend. So
but you get the time to do that.
I get the time to do it. My dog comes with my spouse and me. She's a 20-pound mini golden doodle.
Oh, perfect.
So just sleeps in the back seat of the car on her bed the entire drive. Super great in the car.
That's great. Yeah. So that sounds nice. And then, so the article that you had, said we could talk about a little bit was the one that you had put in the ASTA Journal in 2022. Is that based off your dissertation, or is that something that came before that? I guess your dissertation, I don't know, when did you complete your dissertation?
I completed my dissertation in 2023.
Okay, so this was before that, but it's the title is Retention and Attrition of Early Career Music Teachers, a Survival Analysis.
Yeah, so that one is the Arts Education Policy Review.
That's right. That's different.
That one is based on my dissertation.
Okay.
The AST article, Creativity in Concert.
Creativity in Concert, yes.
Yeah, that one was based off of just some things that I did as a teacher, things that I did with a youth orchestra group that I worked with.
Yeah. Can you give us just a couple examples that you remember that from the article maybe spark some interest? People could look up that 2022 ASTA Journal.
Yeah. So Creativity in Concert really, really spawned from so many conversations I've had with people that it's like, oh, I'd like to do more improvisation or more composition with my students, but we need the rehearsal time to prepare for the concert. And I was like, I get that. I really do. It's hard, especially when there are like community or external pressures on the type of music and the quality, like in quotes, of music you perform.
Yep.
So I was like, what if it's part of the concert?
Right.
And like, what if it's something that we do that gets showcased in the public performance so that people understand, like people being the audience members and outside stakeholders understand the value of it.
Yeah, and the process too.
Yeah. So one of the ideas that I talk about in the book or in the article is the idea of like doing a soundscape to set the stage for the piece. So in the vignette I include in the article, thinking about in the Hall of the Mountain King, where students would then compose this sort of like ethereal sound background music that sort of like a la Moldau sets the landscape of the hills so that the scene comes through.
Okay.
And then students can actually like write a narration to explain the story of Peer Gynt and
that's cool.
What happens.
Yeah.
Another big thing that I talk about in that article is that structure is actually really important to creativity when we're starting out. The example, like when I use working with my pre-service teachers, is how many of you have ever been in a conversation with multiple people about where to go out to dinner? And there are so many options about what to do, and you just can't pick a place. So one of two things happens: you go to the exact same place you always go to, order the exact same thing, or you stay home and eat leftovers.
Yeah.
And like that's just a disappointment all around. Ah, but if you say, do you want to go to this restaurant or that restaurant? And you limit the choice to those two things, well, it's a lot easier to only choose from selected options
Right.
rather than the infinite number of options that you can't choose.
Yes, and that's one of the great things. If you've ever worked with Chris Howes or seen him do some improvisation things, he's like, "Here are your parameters. You only get to
Mhm.
use this to start, and then you can go from there." And that really helps get the creative juices flowing. Because if you just
Yeah.
say improvise, kids freeze up. So yeah, so that's fantastic. Making it structured and giving that organization. When I do my fall concert, it's really early in the year, and we're only able to do maybe 2 pieces per group instead of the usual 3. So we're going to do a skills demonstration, even in high school. Like we're going to show them, here's the scale, and this is what we've been working on. This is why we're doing it, and then they can see the progression of the 4 orchestra classes that I have too. So it doesn't always have to be like you're saying. That uh, as it always is. It could be something really different. And
Mhm.
I've used some improvisation in my concerts as well. That parents are like, "Wow, I didn't know they could do that." Well, they didn't know that they could do that either when we first started.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's fantastic. So I think that would be a great article for people to look up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I just I think it's so important for students, particularly like developing students in elementary, middle, high school. They're going through this period of immense like social change for
Mm-hmm.
them. And you think about it, like in English class, they can read a sonnet in front of the class.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh, you're reading a Shakespeare sonnet. If someone doesn't like the sonnet, it's like, oh well, they don't like Shakespeare's sonnet. But if they write a poem themselves and share it and they don't like the poem, it's like, oh, they don't like my poem. And that can be
Yeah,
scary. Like,
definitely,
that can be
definitely.
really scary.
Yeah.
Uh, Improvisation's the same way. Composition is the same way. And so just making sure that whenever we're doing any sort of thing that requires students to be vulnerable, whether that's improvisation, whether that's performing a scale in front of their peers, playing a solo, that they understand that it's a safe
Yeah.
space, and we can evaluate or and listen to and provide feedback for any number of things about your musical performance or composition or whatever, and that's different than any sort of judgment against the person or for the person
Mm-hmm.
themselves. And sort of like that supportive culture, I think is really key to one, improvisation, and two, just developing a really wonderful, positive environment for students to stay through.
Yeah. Yeah. That's fantastic. Awesome. So tell us a little bit about your new position. I know you said we talked about some of the classes that you teach, but we for people out there that maybe are looking for a graduate program, you can tell us a little bit about that too, and what your school encompasses, because UK is a pretty big school, and
Mhm.
it's an R1 research institution. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, UK has a pretty big music school. It's not like the size of like Indiana, North Texas
Hmm.
FSU or anything, but it's pretty sizable. As an R1 institution, it's like the Carnegie Research Designations. It's based off of the amount of research funding that institution as a whole receives,
Right.
the number of doctorates they confer, their productivity in terms of articles that their faculty publish,
Okay.
etc. Um, but the typical teaching load is like 2 by 2 of 3 credit classes. So 6 credit hours a semester at UK is how that translates to.
Okay.
Every institution will be a little bit
Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
Um, but for people on faculty, in like the assistant professor role. It's approximately half of your load is teaching, approximately half of your load is like research or creative activities,
Mm-hmm.
and then a small sliver of our load is service,
Yeah.
which is this sort of
Yeah.
all-encompassing, catch all other duties as assigned.
Okay.
Um, but it's
Committee
service.
work and
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, service to the department, to the school, also things like service to the profession. So like serving on the ASTA board or reviewing for
Great.
conferences. All of that is part of service and it's part of the job.
That's good that it counts for you. Yeah. Because I know some places they don't really care as much about that. So
Yeah,
yeah.
that's such a good point. Every institution also like
Yeah.
has different definitions of what counts.
Yes.
You're lucky if you're at a school that has a definition of what counts.
Yeah, because
Because not,
otherwise it's a guessing game, you know.
yeah.
When I was at Kennesaw, it was pretty much anything I did. So if I did clinics at the schools, if I did presentations or guest conducting, and it was pretty much anything goes, you know, whether it's writing or presenting or anything like that, which was nice because that's what I was enjoyed doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, always, if you're interested in a career in academia, knowing the types of questions that you should ask of the search committee, like what constitutes service?
Right.
um, for us, like if I guest conduct anything, that's part of my research creative works.
Great.
So that's where like how I get evaluated based off of that metric.
Hmm.
Um, but expectations at UK are laid out really clearly, which
Good.
is lovely.
Yeah.
So like 6 credit hours of classes a semester. Even my role is evenly split between undergraduate and graduate.
Okay.
So I teach generally one graduate class, one undergraduate class a semester. Slight variations, like this past spring, it was just 2 graduate classes.
Hmm.
But typically it'll be one of each semester, and then the rest of my time is spent like presenting at conferences, doing this research, like the teacher attrition article you mentioned
Yes.
earlier.
Yeah. Great. And then, so tell us if someone's interested in being a part of the graduate program, like what are the different majors that you guys offer, and do you have online options or summer options? I don't know what you have
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
So UK has master's programs in music education, music therapy, and music performance.
Uh-huh.
I need to double check if they have master's programs in theory and
Uh-huh.
composition and history. I know they have PhD
But if they
programs.
want to come study with you, obviously they're
Oh,
going to be
yes.
doing like the music
Yeah.
ed. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have an online master's music ed
Oh.
program. It's designed for the full-time K-12 teacher.
Oh,
So if
that's great.
anyone's interested in taking online graduate coursework to either like bump up the pay scale, just get involved with your teaching,
Hmm.
we have a number of classes that are fully online. The great thing about online classes is you get in-state tuition.
Oh, no matter what, no
No
matter
matter
where
so
you
no
are.
matter where you are in the United States,
That's
at UK, if you're in a distance class and you're only taking online classes, all of your tuition is at the in-state level,
That's fantastic. That's a
which
big perk because that just doubles the price sometimes going out of state.
yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah,
so they're
so
able to do this while they're teaching, and that's another great thing too because a lot of people aren't willing to give up their jobs or can't. You know, if you have a family, it's really hard
mhm.
to just give it all up and go be on campus with you. So that's fantastic option.
Yeah,
Is
so
does it take about 2 years, 2.5 years? How long does it usually take if you're doing it completely online?
most of our students typically finish in approximately 2 years.
Hmm.
Depends on the number of classes they wanna take in a semester, it's flexible.
Okay,
So,
they
if
could
you
do
wanna,
one.
like you could take 1 a semester, and it'll take you a little bit longer,
Sure.
but you also don't spend as much money right away.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and then the
uh,
summer, are there a lot of offerings during the summer where they can kind of double up and things like that?
yeah,
Yeah.
we do have summer classes. We don't offer a ton of, like, traditional classes,
Hmm.
but something that we have a really robust ORF training or certification, so people can do their ORF levels for graduate credit
Hmm.
as part of their master's degree at UK.
Okay.
Um, we have during the school year evening classes, asynchronous classes. So Like the intro to research class that I teach for our master's students is completely asynchronous. I'm available to schedule synchronous meetings. We have like some optional meetings in the evenings or on weekends, just like to collaborate, get a sense of community for
Mm-hmm.
our connect with people all the way across the country.
Very
It's
cool.
like we have grad students in Texas, Tennessee, Atlanta, Virginia,
Mm-hmm.
Indiana.
Wow. Everywhere.
Uh,
That's great.
yeah, so that's been really fun.
Mm-hmm.
Our PhD program is designed to be like on campus in residency.
Mm-hmm.
We've had a few students who are like a little far out, and that like we've been able to like make it work with their schedule. It's
Mm-hmm.
a smaller program, so we do have enough. The advantage is we have a lot of flexibility in when we offer
Okay.
the courses. So if we only have one or two people who need to take their course for their PhD, we'll schedule it. If that's like Monday at 9 a.m., it's Monday at 9 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
If it's Tuesday at 4 p.m., it's Tuesday at 4 p.m. And
Got it.
like the students and the faculty member with that class can work it out.
Great.
Yeah, the program for the PhD is, if you do it full time, it's 3 years, 2 years of coursework, and then 1 full year of dissertating.
And you offer some assistantships and things like that for people to come and
Yes,
get a stipend and
we have a complete tuition remission and a living stipend. The big part of the assistantship, though, is actually the health insurance that's included.
oh yeah,
Uh, UK has
big deal.
really phenomenal health insurance,
Great.
and Lexington's a fairly low cost of living area.
Mm-hmm.
So I know a lot of people will see like tuition stipends, and it's like, oh, it's only $15,000. Um, that's like completely unaffordable. It is hard. I'm
Yeah.
it is not a glorious income by any
No.
means.
No.
But in Lexington, like it's okay for if you don't need to support a family.
Yeah.
It's reasonable. It's doable. Lexington's a fairly large town, small city.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of great opportunities. Lots of great restaurants.
Great. Wow.
Uh, that's one of my favorite parts about
Yeah.
Lexington.
It says in your bio that you're culinary extraordinaire, or you
I
you
am
like to
always
cook.
I'm always down for a culinary adventure.
That's right.
Whether that's going to a fine dining restaurant, going to like this back alley that somebody has a grill and it's like, hey, I got some tacos. It's like I am
It
there.
doesn't matter. Yeah.
Yeah, if it's, hey, I kind of want to make this for dinner tonight. Can we try making this? Is like, I'm game.
Cool. Yep.
So love food.
It's always fun. I enjoy cooking at home more than going out. But that's just me. Yeah.
I really enjoy cooking when I don't have a deadline. But just like when I can get up in the morning, it's like, all right, I'm gonna prepare the dough to make some bao buns.
Oh wow.
It's like, all
Yeah.
right, gonna slow roast the pork belly.
You got all summer now to do that.
I do. I do. It's like,
Great.
pork belly bao buns are, I think, the greatest comfort food on the planet.
That sounds awesome. That sounds awesome. Well, hey, it's been really cool to get to chat with you a little bit. What are you kind of seeing on the forefront of string ed or music ed that is maybe a concern or something that you like are excited about? Either way.
Yeah, it's a concern, also a point of excitement. We need more string teachers.
Yeah.
Like we really need more string teachers. So any orchestra teachers that are listening to this podcast, talk to your students because you really are the first line of recruitment. I know it's tempting to try to tell students that, teaching is hard, and it is.
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely get that. But you're there because you love it. And showing students that it's a viable career option,
Yeah.
even though they see you literally every single day. If you don't explicitly tell them, you could do this,
Mm-hmm.
it may not cross
They
their
won't see
mind.
themselves in that role. Yeah. Yeah. And I think
Yeah.
I want to definitely do more with that next year and get my kids on the podium and
Mhm.
getting them, making sure they really understand the conducting patterns and they can all do it. And then maybe even have some more student conductors. I think that's important. I think that will also motivate kids to say, wow, I was up there and I conducted my class. Imagine if I went to school for 4 years to learn how to do this for real,
Yeah.
that would be something. So I definitely want to do that too, but it's a good point. There are so many string teaching jobs. Just in Cobb County, I think we've had 7 in my district
Wow.
this year alone. So they're out there, and there's some really good ones, and there's a lot of people that we just need to make sure that we're filling in with qualified candidates, so that way the kids can be inspired for the next generation. So I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I talked to so many undergrads that like they waffle between like, oh, music performance or music education. And it's like, are you interested in K-12? Well, sure, but I also want to get really good. It's like, just practice more.
You can get really
There's
good as a music ed major.
there's nothing about being a music ed major that says that you can't play just as well as anyone who gets a performance degree.
Hmm.
Granted, you do have a little bit more time spent in your like education coursework
Yeah.
and student teaching experiences. So you do have a little bit less time in the practice room than your
Hmm.
performance major counterparts.
Hmm.
But the experience that I got in my education courses about like teaching students really shaped my practice strategies. And I was like, oh, well, if this is effective for teaching students how to play, I was like, maybe I should try some of these strategies in my own personal practice.
Yeah,
And
and it was cool because you've kind of experienced it, string playing at least as not as a kid.
mhm,
You were already an adult, and that there's something to be said about that, and learning an instrument that way and how you approach it differently. Because I look back at like. My parents took pictures of me in 5th grade, 6th grade, and I had terrible hand position. I was like if I only knew more then, and have started. I was very, I was all public school. I didn't take lessons
mhm,
until 9th grade, and I didn't have any clue of what I wanted to do until maybe 10th or 11th grade, and that's when I started like, oh, I should probably actually practice. And
mhm.
I went to college very underprepared, and got my butt kicked by my teacher, and it was. I owe him everything because I was not ready, and the way that I would consider myself ready now, and when I got out. So for me, it was learning how to teach myself as an adult. And that was my teacher's whole thing was you need to prepare yourself so that way when I'm gone, you can still continue to advance. And he did a great job with that, like making sure. And I owe him everything. Howard Beebe.
Yeah,
Howard Beebe.
how cool is it that I think like the teaching profession is the only profession that when it does its best, it makes itself obsolete.
Right. Yeah.
Like what when a teacher if a teacher does their job really, really well, their students don't need them anymore.
Yes.
And I've never worked so hard in my life to make myself obsolete.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but that's sort of like that perspective and thinking about like independence,
Yes.
um, cultivating musical independence in your students,
Yeah.
cultivating musical independence in yourself.
Yeah.
Like that's the goal. We can teach students like, oh, that's low too.
Yeah.
Nope, lower.
Right. Right.
Still low. Nope, too low. Or we can teach students to listen, play, reflect thoughtfully,
Hmm.
and be like, "Whoops," and then play it right the next time.
Yeah.
Um, it takes a lot to get to that point.
Oh yeah.
But
But that's the great thing about teaching is that when they finally get it and they're finally doing that, and you're like, yes, and then they graduate, and you're like, oh, I just had it where I wanted them. Now I got to start over with these freshmen and work my way up, or 6th grade or whatever it is. Um,
yeah,
but yeah, that's the joy, and that's what keeps every year fresh. For me at least, is just knowing that there's still more work to do, and no matter how good your kids play, there's always more to do, and they're always going to leave, and you always have to do it again.
Yes. But how many other other situations in life do you get to be like, just like my syllabus, I'm going to try it a little bit differently next year. I'm going to try to make it a little bit better. And maybe you're teaching shifting one day, and all the students are not getting shifting. And then, next day you just
Think
try
about
it
it a
again.
different way. Yeah, try something new. I mean, next year it's me. I'm finishing up year 28, so it's like, and I've been all over the place and done, had middle school, high school, elementary. It doesn't matter, whatever college. Um, you don't want any year to be exactly the same, and so I try something new every year.
Mhm.
And then there are some certain things, of course, we fall back on. And we're like, this works for me, this works for my kids. We can't ignore that, but at the same time, like, there's all these things after being at my school now for 2 years that I want to do differently, and it's exciting. It
Yeah.
keeps you going.
Yeah, something that's really funny about working with pre-service teachers is, like, I'll model a lesson for them. Like, maybe it's, like, just to teaching left-hand frame,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll be like, "Dr. Miller, is would you be upset if I did this with elementary school students tomorrow?" And it's like and I just smile and be like, "That's literally, like, why we model it like
Mm-hmm.
this way." Like, if something works, it works.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't mean it'll work every single time in every single context. Always be reflective about it. But young teachers, for whatever reason, like, have been so conditioned by the anti-cheating discourse
Yeah.
in school that, like, any sort of using someone else's lesson is cheating and not allowed, and they have to completely reinvent everything.
No.
If you are a young teacher and you go and observe a teacher or have someone into your classroom and you see something and you think, wow, that's brilliant, just talk to them, find out why they did it, help understand why it was
Mm-hmm.
successful, and then implement it in your own teaching.
Steal it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. I mean, that's what all teachers do. I mean, we all take from each other, and that's why being a part of a community like ASTA or whatever is so great, because you grow, and
Yeah, like, my creativity and concert article, I don't think there's a single original idea in there.
yeah,
I think about some of the Asta giants, like, before us, like Julie Lyon Lieberman, like,
yeah,
a lot of her ideas made way into the Asta curriculum. Soundscapes have been around since, I don't know, at least Smetna. Uh, uh, but there's no need to, like, do all this extra work to completely reinvent the thing.
right, yeah. So, well, this has been a phenomenal conversation, and so glad that we were able to finally get together and make it work. And
Yeah.
so I'll leave all your contact information in the podcast description and the video description, so people can contact you if they're interested in coming out, looking to coming to UK for their degree. But David, it's been super pleasure, and I hope that you'll continue to enjoy your summer and cook and vacation and do all those great things.
Yeah. Thank you so
So.
much for having me, Charles. It was great
Yeah,
to see you.
absolutely. Well, everybody, that's all we have for the Orchestra Teacher Podcast and this episode. I hope that you all have a great summer, and we'll be bringing some more episodes to you guys as I can line up different guests. But the summer is when I have a lot of more time, like we've been talking about, to have guests out and do all these great things. So we will see you all. Happy summer. And we'll see you next time. Thank you for tuning in. For resources and more information about the Orchestra Teacher website, podcast, and YouTube channel, visit www.orchestrateacher.net.